Can we talk about how there's no thunderstorms in Zora's domain? Or, well, anywhere around Zora's domain? You'd think that there would be, given everything we know about thunderstorms, but the chance of getting a thunderstorm in this region is 0. Why is that? Let's talk about it for a minute. To understand why this happens, we need to understand how BOTW's weather works. Thanks to Reddit user Woodle005, we can better understand what weather conditions are going to occur in what location at any given time. The weather is broken into approximately 4-minute-long cycles. The weather that you experience depends on where you are in the world. The world is broken up into 20 different climate zones. Yes, I said 20 of them. Each climate has a different percent chance of specific weather occurring. Namely, the game decides whether it will be blue skies, cloudy, rain, heavy rain, and thunderstorms. Rain and heavy rain can be snow or heavy snow depending on the temperature, which is determined by altitude, time of day, climate zone, or some combination of the three. For our purposes, we know that Zora's domain falls into the climate zone labeled Zora Temperate Climate. This climate zone has a 50% chance of blue skies, a 20% chance of it being cloudy, a 20% chance of rain, and a 10% chance of being heavy rain. Nowhere in the game's code allows for thunderstorms in this particular region. Now, there are a few issues with this from the how weather works perspective, but from the game's own perspective, this doesn't really add up either. Hear me out on this one. There are 3 other climate zones that touch Zora Temperate Climate: Timor Plain Climate, Hyrule Plain Climate, and Hateru Plain Climate. The Timor Plain Climate has a 10% chance of spawning thunderstorms in its region. The Hyrule Plain Climate has a 5% chance of thunderstorms. Hateru Plain Climate, similar to Zora Temperate Climate, can't have any thunderstorms at all. This still means that 2 out of the 3 climate zones bordering the Zora climate have a chance for thunderstorms to happen. So why is it a 0% chance in Zora's domain? Why can it only rain here? Let's consider what we need to make a thunderstorm normally. We usually need moisture, which we know Zora's domain has. There's water quite literally everywhere. We know it evaporates given the whole rain occurs here aspect, so water is evaporating into the atmosphere thanks to our friend the water cycle. This would mean that we have at least that ingredient to develop a thunderstorm. Ingredient number 2 is instability. This usually occurs when warm air is present that's given a bit of a push. Said push of air is our 3rd ingredient for thunderstorm formation, known as lift, which occurs due to different air densities that happen when the sun heats the Earth's surface. Do we have instability and lift here, I hear you asking? Honestly, we probably should. The air around Zora's domain is likely warm enough for thunderstorm development. You don't necessarily need really high temperatures for thunderstorms to develop. They can develop if conditions are right at nearly any temperature. You've probably heard of thundersnow before. That's a phenomenon that can happen. While it's not happening here, it does happen in the real world. So thunderstorms can usually happen in any location regardless of temperature as long as the ingredients needed are present. It's just harder with lower temperatures. Not impossible though. There's definitely a difference in air density between the air above the water and the air above the land, so it shouldn't be too difficult to get a source of lift here either. You'd think that, given this, we'd get thunderstorms in this area, but we don't. So why? If the immediate surrounding areas can have thunderstorms, why can't Zora's domain? The likely answer to this is that there's a town in this region, so they don't want there to be any thunderstorms. Although we see thunderstorms in other towns in this game, so I don't think that argument holds much weight, but maybe that's just me. It's possible that the game is developed without thunderstorms in Zora's domain since it would probably be really hard to navigate in a thunderstorm. Given lightning's tendency to strike water, a player would have had to navigate that alongside nearly removing all of their metal equipment so that they didn't get struck by lightning. Although frankly, that's not realistic either. That would have been painful to do for an entire area every time the game re-rolls the weather, so that might be the reason why they didn't include thunderstorms in Zora's domain. But am I satisfied with trying to use game mechanics to explain this? No, I'm not, in fact. I'm going to explain why thunderstorms would be prevented in this region from a meteorological perspective. I think that the game developers may have done something here that makes a little bit of sense. Recall our climate map from before. While we've covered all of the climates that are immediately adjacent to Zora's domain, there are a few more that are relatively close that we need to consider. Specifically, Elden Climate Level 0 and Frost Climate 4. Let's start with Frost Climate 4. So this climate zone has a 50% chance of blue skies, a 20% chance of it being cloudy, a 20% chance of rain, and a 10% chance of heavy rain. Similar to Zora's domain, it also has a 0% chance of thunderstorms. In fact, if we compare the numbers, they're exactly the same for both areas. Why? Firstly, it's Mount Lanayru. It always snows here. The temperature is constantly below freezing. Given the lower temperature of this place, it doesn't allow for much moisture to enter the atmosphere around here. Granted, there's still enough for snow, of course, but it still has less water content overall than a place that isn't below freezing would have. On top of that, we likely have reduced instability and lift. While air densities can change around here over land, given the difference in altitude, it wouldn't be enough to cause instability and lift consistently. I can see why no thunderstorms appear here. The air would be colder, not to mention drier. But what does this have to do with Zora's domain? Well, this particular region sits south of the domain. If the wind direction is right, this colder, drier air mass from the mountain could make its way into Zora's domain. If this happened, it wouldn't necessarily cause snow instead of rain unless the temperature dropped below freezing, but it would knock the temperature down quite a bit. The thing about cold air is that it's inherently stable. Say this cold air actually migrated to Zora's domain due to the wind, this would increase stability in the atmosphere, making it harder for air to rise and become a proper thunderstorm. This theory does hold some weight, but this is only one circumstance, and the wind direction is unlikely to come from the south all the time. Air typically moves from west to east, not south to north, though that does happen sometimes depending on the circumstances. Thus enters Elden climate level 0. This climate is west-ish of Zora's domain. By west-ish, I mean it's west-northwest or just straight up northwest of Zora's domain. Now, the air in Elden is warmer than Mount Lanayru. I mean, level 0 isn't quite as warm as Elden climate level 1 or 2, but still warmer since it's right by those climate zones. In the Elden climate zones, there is a 0% chance of any precipitation occurring. No, really, it's a 100% chance of blue skies anywhere you go. There is no weather here. While that may not be realistic for a whole host of reasons, it's what we're dealing with. Given the lack of precipitation, we can assume the air mass over this area is warm and dry. If this warm, dry air mass moves over Zora's domain, it would remove some of the moisture from the atmosphere. While the moisture in this area would never be 0, we know that because it rains, it would be a bit harder for thunderstorms to form because, while warm air increases instability and lift, that doesn't mean much if there's not as much moisture. You wouldn't get the traditional thunderstorm we're all used to. It'd likely be a low precipitation event instead. Given that the wind tends to blow from west to east, I could see some part of Elden's climate influencing the climate around the domain. While Zora's domain does have plenty of moisture, I don't think that it alone can overcome the dry atmosphere created by Elden. It would help, certainly, that this place isn't a desert or a volcano, but the dry air from Elden would still impact the domain a little bit. I wouldn't exactly call this the end-all be-all solution here, though. It depends on how much dry air is seeping into Zora's domain, for one thing, but also it still rains in the domain. It's not like it's a light rain, it can get pretty heavy here. So what do we do? Is there not a solution that makes meteorological sense? Well, given that we're near all of these climates, I suspect the moist air from the other regions can permeate into Zora's domain as well, namely from central Hyrule. My main reasoning for this is that it's one of the regions that's directly west of the domain. The moist air that sits over this particular region could easily permeate into Zora's domain. On top of that, if the wind direction were pointing from north to south, we could also get moist air from the Akala region directly to the north, which is capable of producing thunderstorms. One thing I will say is that the wind direction is going to be the key player here. While air usually flows from west to east on Earth, this may not be Earth at all. We don't actually know what sort of planet Hyrule is on. Well, I generally assume it's an Earth-like atmosphere since it's the only planet that has life similar to what we see in game. That doesn't necessarily mean this is an Earth-like planet. We're making a lot of general assumptions here, but overall, this theory could hold some weight. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe. I have more ideas and I'm happy to share them with you. I will see you all in the next one. Have a good day, everybody.